Committee of the Whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favour? Motion's carried. I'd like to call tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting of November 23rd, 2015 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, second by Councillor Moreau. All those in favour? Motion's carried. Just before we get started, I'll quickly read the statement from the Chair regarding the Committee of the Whole meetings. For those of you present this evening and for those watching via television, let me please explain that a Committee of the Whole meeting is a committee that consists of all members of Council. This meeting allows Council members to deal with issues in greater detail, but is less formal than a regular Council meeting. During this meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations may be made at the next regular Council meeting. At that time, the recommendations of the previous Committee of the Whole meeting will be adopted and acted upon. Some key points to remember when making your presentations are: remember, Council meetings are televised, and it is very important to introduce yourself and, if applicable, name of the organization that you're representing, and speak directly into the microphone in a clear voice. When presenting, please address any comments or questions to the Chair of the Committee. Keep your presentation brief. 5 minutes would be ideal, as Council has several presentations on their agenda. Once you have completed your presentation, please ensure you summarize any requests or concern. The Chair will then ask Council members if they have any questions. Remember, there will be no decisions made at this meeting or on any requests or concerns you have made. Lastly, requests will be referred to staff for review, report, and recommendation to Council. Council meetings are very full. We would appreciate your consideration and your time allotment. At this time, I'll call any members of the public that would like to speak to us regarding any topic of your choosing. Welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council. Mark Newberry, 150 Bill Murray Way. I believe you have a resolution to look at a rezoning application this evening. My wife and I definitely don't object to any development occurring on that site. We've definitely got a concern about noise, traffic. We believe we're also going to lose privacy to a greater extent. The original complex was considered to be low density, in my view. We would like to see that continue. We're also concerned that if this rezoning application to change the height to 28 metres, if for some reason the current developer doesn't succeed or continue, that means that any other developer could come in and put something up that is not pleasing to the eye, that's being considered now as an architectural detail. So for those reasons, we are concerned. Other than that, thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to say something to you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will note to the public, too, that tonight is the first and second reading of this, and that if Council chooses to move this forward tonight, that this will be moved to a public hearing on the 7th of December, where there will be a public hearing regarding the application as a whole. Is there other speakers that would like to speak? Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. His name is Lucas Anders. He's a well-known local radio host.
And this is Michael Gurney, a man about town.
We're here on a lighthearted mission. May we invite you, Council, and through you, all of Prince Rupert, to an upcoming theatrical production at the Leicester Centre of the Arts, in which both Mr. Anders and I have a significant part. This is a play called Stones in His Pockets, on stage at the Leicester, a venue that you know well, and presented by a well-loved local homegrown theatrical society called Harbour Theatre Society. The play is on at the Leicester Centre between December 10th and 12th. 4 performances. Tickets are on sale at Cook's Jewelers and the Leicester Centre box office. With our remaining time, Mr. Anders will provide a cogent, heartwarming, and thoughtful summary of why this play is important to see.
Between the two of us, we play about 15 different characters, and we feel Prince Rupert is a town that dreams big and reaches for the stars, and we feel this play is about that, and invite you to reach for the stars with us, and come join us at the Leicester Centre of Arts, December 10th through 12th.
Thank you for your time and attention.
Quick question.
Of course.
Great, by the way. What time shows are at? Do you know? Do you have that info?
7:30 each evening, and then the Saturday, the 12th, we have a matinee performance at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. And how much per ticket? Sorry.
Adults are $20, students are $12.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions from council? Thank you.
Is there a senior rate?
Only if you bring 12 of your friends, Mr. Cunningham.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the next speaker. Welcome.
I'd like to ask a question at the question period. You got them all mixed in together. Could we, the city of Prince Rupert, set up a climate change committee, or name it what you want, greenhouse gas reduction? It becomes part because the city itself is controlling a lot of the issues, and the city itself is doing a lot of the things. I had a discussion with one of the previous treasurers about these kind of things, and he framed the discussion in terms of money. We're spending X amount of money less on energy than we were the year before, but that has nothing to do with. So I think we need, by having this greenhouse gas committee or something like that, we change the perspective from not money to but to the greenhouse itself. And the city, like I said, has so much to do with the thing. And one of the things that in my science groups or in the climate change things is MERE, which is measure, evaluate, and reduce. But that's a pretty good thing for the city itself, because we're going to have later in this discussion group, or later in your council meeting, you're going to talk about raising the money to the Civic Center. So if you do everything in terms of money, what happens is, yes, we'll raise the money to the, but that means fewer people with lower income people will go to the meeting. So if you're keeping effectiveness, is seeing how well the money is being spent, how many people are actually going to the Civic Center, not should we jack up the rates. And secondly, if we do jack up the rates, the city staff has a reduced rate along with the RCMP. So are we going to jack up theirs? Now, well, the whole point of having that reduced rate was to get them to go to the thing. So by putting the emphasis on money as opposed to people using it, etc., we distort our things. And that's how come I would like to have this committee, call it what you want, but it would look at trying to lower the city's greenhouse gas production. And this is through many things. The city controls, the parking. The city is instrumental in all kinds of different. And the city itself has huge amounts of staff driving around their trucks, 20 of them going to coffee break at the same time. But my whole thing would be left, if they're all driving electrical vehicles, what's the problem? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yeah, well, one of the things I think about that, it's fine and dandy to change our fleet over to electrical vehicles, but the cost in that alone, when we're looking at pennies for the rec center, and we're putting the prices up right across the board. No one's immune to the increase. And we've also concentrated monies into programs for everyone gets to play, or no one's left out in that. That's one of the main reasons that we're looking at this, and the staff is down at the rec center is also identifying the peak hours. They're got a new software system down there that identifies what's being done, when it's being done, and who it's being done by. This is something that's never happened before, so we can start tracking everything. But what you were talking about is just about two different issues. One's the rec center, and the other is green gas emissions. And, it's green gas emissions aren't just the city employees going for coffee break. It's everyone in the downtown area coming out every 2 hours and moving their truck around the block because they don't want to pay a parking fine. It's people driving around the block for 5 minutes to find a parking place. There's lots of other fingers can be pointed in a lot of other areas. I'll leave it at that.
Sure. So we have two topics there, and we're not going to open up for a debate here, but climate change really cannot be simplified into such a manner, and we won't get into the topic at the moment. And we will discuss rec fees when we'll have a report coming from the recreation director too today. So we'll go through some of the rationale for that. Okay, is there any other members from public that'd like to speak? Yep, come on. I'll just press the little green button there. Yeah, that's right there on your microphone. In front of you. Yeah,
this one.
Perfect.
Okay, I am holding the Quality of Life Official Community Plan Bylaw 3236, which was finally considered and adopted in February of 2008. It's a thoughtfully prepared document with specific goals and purposes. I respectfully ask Council that if it must be changed, please give us in detail why, and hopefully it is not to the benefit of a single developer. And I'd also like to add that nobody's talking about number 1 Pillsbury House, where we spend a lot of money to restore it and maintain it, and everybody in the community is going to lose sight of that if this huge building is in front of it.
So if you, at this moment, we'll take your concerns, but during the public hearing is probably the best, if you have a specific concern about the development.
Okay.
That's probably the best chance to get on record
Right.
what your concerns are with that development. But at this is a forum, just express your concerns, and we'll definitely hear those
cool.
for sure.
And I just, like I say, I just would ask Council to honor the bylaw in final. That's all I got to say.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other speakers? I'll call another time per speaker. Okay, so seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn to reconvene the regular council session. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Okay.
Okay, item 2, recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of November 23rd, 2015 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Renhowa, second by Councillor Moreau. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of November 9th, 2015 be adopted. Moved by
I'll
Councillor
second
Kinney,
it.
seconded by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of November 9th, 2015 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Renhowa, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, first up we have a report from Planning Department, report regarding development variance permit number DP 1525 for 724 8th Avenue East. Welcome, Mr. Creckett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This development variance permit is for the property. I can get this to work. Located at 724 8th Avenue East. This property is located in a R2 residential area. and it is what we would call a wartime neighborhood. The house predates 1946, and as you can see, has received a fair amount of improvements. The variance, the application is to vary the front property setback from 3.6 meters to 0.9 meters in order to build a covered entrance, which would extend to approximately this location right here. Staff is the opinion that the proposed addition will have minimum impact on the form and character of the dwelling. It will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The applicant requires approval to proceed to public notification process.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the development variance permit application number DP 1525 for 724 8th Avenue East proceed to the public notification process. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Kinney. Any discussion?
No, I'll second it.
Motion's on the floor. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on to item 10A, report regarding the Bill Murray Way development.
This application received the first reading at the July 20th, 2015 regular council meeting. One of the requirements at that time included a public information meeting, which was held September 15th. At that time, the applicant sought amendment to the proposed zoning amendment bylaw, number 3377, 2015, by introducing a new commercial zone and accordingly amend the downtown development permit area design guidelines. The report, which was presented at the first reading, is included in attachment number 1, and it continues to be applicable. This property is located at the intersection of Bill Murray Way, Styles Place, First Avenue West, and 2nd Street. The previous version of the zoning bylaw, it's currently zoned C1, commercial. The previous version of the zoning bylaw, number 3377, is included in attachment 1, just in case you are interested in comparisons. It's on page 50. And the new proposed zoning bylaw is included in attachment number 2. Very briefly, now I've done it. So very briefly, there are 4 actions in this bylaw. The first action is to introduce a new zone on the map, attachment A. I'm not going to flip it around. Essentially, the proposal is to amend the zoning bylaw to include downtown high-rise zone. The second action is to amend the text of the zoning bylaw by introducing a new zone, which would be C6, downtown high-rise zone. It is essentially a takeoff from C1, downtown commercial zone. It contains the same uses. It increases the floor area ratio for multiple family dwellings from 1.5 to 3.0. It increased the maximum height to 35 meters with the references to downtown development permit area design guidelines, and it also includes a setback from any residential areas of 4.5 meters. The last action, or the second last action, is amending is to amend map 3 of the development permit area design guidelines to include a new sector, which would be Sector D, and the cross section is pointing to Sector D. That would allow 11-story buildings and up to the maximum height of 35 meters. The last action of the bylaw is to include the words in the downtown permit design guidelines that essentially justify placement of the new building regulations into the design guidelines. With respect to analysis, it's essentially the same context as was presented at the first reading on June 22nd of the original bylaw. The background, Section 6 Downtown Commercial Zone, and the excerpts from the design guidelines remain applicable. The primary difference between the two bylaws is, whereas in the original bylaw, the height increase was for all of the areas B, so I'm pointing to all of the areas B, and the new bylaw essentially creates a new zone for only the area that is proposed to be developed. So essentially, this would be what you can refer to as spot zoning. So while this may not be a complex application, is that it does merit effort to identify the main elements of the process. Firstly, we are amidst of amending of zoning bylaw and development permit design guidelines process. Secondly, as I'll refer to it later, in a report, parking requirements analysis using ITE, that's the Institute of Transportation Engineers specifications and city zoning bylaw parking requirements. That would be reviewed and commented on by Ministry of Highway staff and city staff. And the development permit area being the last one. Now, at this point in the project development, I am not sure if the project will include strata subdivision. If that is required, that would come prior to the development permit application. Development permit application will be coming to the council, while the strata subdivision will be responsibility of approving officer. Some of the items which were required at the first reading and remain applicable include public information meeting that was completed on September 15th. The staff and applicants' records of that meeting are included in attachment 4. External referrals included Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, which requested traffic impact study, which was completed. And the response is included in attachment 5. MOTI did determine that the detailed study is not required, but they did ask for parking allocations analysis due to the applicant's eagerness to complete the zoning amendment process and requirement to be firm and exact on the type of the amount of proposed commercial space before being able to conduct such study. City staff has asked MOTI to defer parking allocation analysis to be addressed as a condition of the development permit. Internal referrals, there were no responses necessitating review or comments. In conclusion, Mr. Mayor, based on the technical information provided by staff, council has the following options: reject the application, or ask for additional information, or proceed as per staff's recommendation.
Questions from council?
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Krekik. I just have a quick, or it's really more of a comment, really. I just want to clarify exactly what you mean. A lot of the concerns that I've been hearing from neighbors in particular relates to traffic. I was hoping you could clarify the process for me, but what you mean that the traffic impact study would be complete in the development permit phase as opposed to during the rezoning.
So the traffic impact study has been completed, and Ministry of Highways, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure determined that they do not require detailed analysis. So in terms of the traffic itself, they're satisfied that the existing streets will be able to accommodate the new development without major disruptions. The part about parking is a separate part from the traffic. So generally at this stage of the development, we also look at the parking. So does the highways at the parking, if they are within a context of city requirements or ITE requirements. ITE requirements are used by Ministry of Highways. They are higher standards than the city standards, and generally we end up looking at the difference and how that can be addressed. This is specifically because of the closeness of the highways, which is actually 2nd Avenue.
Any further questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another concern from speaker was noise. So how can we deal that?
Noise is something that's so difficult to assess and to regulate. There's two kind of noises during the construction time. Generally, the developer is asked to work within a context of generally acceptable working hours. There could be restrictions on evening works and on weekend works. But in terms of how the project will generate the noise, I think in this instance here, that would be extremely difficult to assess or to regulate.
Other questions, Councillor Kinney?
Thank you, Mayor Brain. Mr. Krekik, could you explain to the lady that asked or mentioned that the Pillsbury House would be affected? Because on the maps that I have, it wouldn't be. You could see it very clear. It's on the other side of the road.
I think in terms of, if we go to the context map, Pillsbury House is located across the street, so to speak, and I imagine that the effects, could be extrapolated in terms of the closeness of a structure and such, but I'm not really sure if I can answer any better than that. Councillor Kinney.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? Councillor Kellyanne, do you have any comments to make?
Nope.
So with that said, I'd like to make the motion that we give first and second reading and move this to public hearing so we can hear directly from the public, get their input on record, and make our decision accordingly. I'll let someone second that first.
I'll second it.
So just to be clear, we're moving the recommendation outlined in the
That's right.
agenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Moreau, seconded by Councillor Kinney. Further discussion?
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I was going to add was I think it's fairly evident to us that in this particular case, in this project, I think spot zoning is superior to blanket zoning the downtown core. I know that was a concern that Councillor Thorkelson had identified before, and I know that was brought up to me on a few occasions from different community members. So in this particular case, spot zoning, in my opinion, in my reading, is superior to blanket zoning. And so I would really like to move this to public hearing so we can hear directly from the public and make our decision from there.
Any other further comments? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Item 10B, another report from City Planner regarding Drake Crescent development.
This is an application.
Just a microphone there, sorry. Yeah.
Right. This application is to rezone the property, which is hatched. Kind of difficult to see here, but I will outline it with a cursor. This island between Drake Crescent and Prince Rupert Boulevard, from RM1 to RM3. The full application is included in attachment number 1. The subject property contains approximately 1.9 acres, which is approximately 7.5 hectares. The quality of life official community plan designates this area as residential, and the zoning bylaw zones this specific area for RM1, which has the maximum density of 42 units per hectare. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to RM3 for the purposes of multifamily dwellings up to 4 stories, which is measured differently in densities at the higher zones, and it is to the floor area ratio, which is 1.5 times the entire site. The proposed rezoning effects on surrounding properties. Right across the street of Drake Crescent, there is an RM2 zone. This zone, the maximum density is, I believe, 75 units per hectare. And Kitty Corner is RM3 zone, which is the same zone that this property is seeking. And there is also very little chance of adverse effects of increasing the density on this property onto the properties across the street, which are institutional. I believe this is a church, and a variety of light industrial uses. Within a context of existing multifamily residential uses, and the official community plan underpinnings of densification, this application is in keeping with the policies of both official community plan and the zoning bylaw. In conclusion, the proposal is consistent with the city's regulations. However, before proceeding to public hearing, staff requests the following: that the applicant conducts public information meeting, and the staff conducts the internal referral and communicates with MOTI to determine if their review is required to sign off on a bylaw. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Is there any current design work on what would be there? Has the applicant put forward a design for the property, or?
The applicant is talking about a mixture of multifamily apartments and townhouses. Probably more by my asking him to hold off on the actual outlooks of the buildings until we finish the rezoning process, which is generally concerned with the land use matters, and to present that at the time of the development permit application. Quite often, Mr. Mayor, there becomes a confusion in terms of, what the project looks like and what the application is for. Applications that you receive here are for the land use regulations and zoning regulations, and how the project looks like in terms of the outlook and exactness comes at the development permit stage.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, because we've obviously had issues in the past of a proposal comes and then it's a certain design and then all of a sudden it's built differently because of through the process changes are made. However, I do think that for the public's interests, it might be good to see some concepts that perhaps the developer has done in other places, or what potential it could be. Not exact, I get that, but I think people, rather than just blanket zoning something, might want to see maybe what a concept could look like. Doesn't have to be exact, just for the applicant's consideration. But I do understand the rationale that you just mentioned there.
Applicant is in the audience, and I'm sure that he's going to take notes on it.
Other questions from council?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another thing I can see, like there's lots of tree. Is this one a buffer zone or no?
Sorry?
Is this a buffer zone?
No. This is. I'll just move it to the. So this is zoned for residential development. It is designated an official community plan as a residential development, and currently, yes, it does have trees on it, but the conversation about buffer zones and such does not enter into this application.
So basically, we're just making it a more dense development.
Yes.
Okay, which is, I think, within the city's mandate to densify.
As I said, within the context of the quality of life official community plans underpinnings, this project it works within those policies.
Great. Any further questions from council?
Basically, all the developer is doing on the Prince Rupert Boulevard side of Drake Crescent what he's done on the other side of Drake Crescent, if I read this correctly.
Are you referring to Oasis Apartments?
Well, no. I'm referring to what's on Drake Crescent now, townhouses and apartments.
Yes. On the other side, I don't think it's the same developer. I just kind of got a little bit confused.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the density on the other side is RM2, which is 75 units per hectare. I did a quick calculation on this property here, and the maximum density that can be gained from this area, the crescent inside the crescent, would be in a neighborhood of 100,000 square feet floor space, which could be something in a neighborhood of 100 apartments. However, I did note in early introduction, and also applicants, the application does note that the developer seeks to develop a mixture of high-rise and townhouses.
Yeah, no. This is IntraWest out of West Vancouver, Whistler. They're a fairly large company, and they already own the other part. So, I don't think they're going to be putting anything junky in there. It'll just bring the value of their other places down. But anyway.
Okay, any further comments? So the recommendation is that council gives first reading to the proposed City of Prince Rupert zoning amendment bylaw number 3382/2015, that council instructs the applicant to hold a public information meeting, and that council instructs staff to conduct referrals. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Kinney. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, item 10C, report from the Director of the Recreation Committee, from Director of Recreation, regarding the proposed changes to rec fees.
Thank you, Mayor Brain and Council. In November 2014, Council tasked staff with doing a comprehensive review of recreation fees and charges. And the results of the study are in, and three main key results from our findings is that currently 75% of Recreation Department's operating budget is subsidized by our taxpayers. Secondly, if we maintain the same fees that we're currently charging in recreation, by the year 2020, we will be 27 to 42% lower than the average of communities of a similar geography and population and industry such as Rupert. And thirdly, we've found that there's a necessity to streamline our rate systems here in recreation to improve the ease of use and the accessibility of our facilities. And two of those pieces that we need to key in on are, first of all, maintaining or improving accessibility for our low-income taxpayers and Rupertites to access recreation services, and secondly, to look at amalgamating some of our rates, such as seniors, to ensure that our aging community has the opportunity to continue to access recreation. So the recommendation at this stage is that staff is requesting that Council give first, second, and third readings to the Recreation Fees and Charges Bylaw number 3383/2015, as well as establish a Recreation Capital Reserve Fund in the amount of 5% of all recreation revenues annually in a capital reserve fund for facility maintenance as well as potential expansion in future.
Great, thank you. So I'll just say a few things here. So I think just for the public's awareness here that currently we already, I don't believe, I'm not sure what the exact number is, Ms. Baum, in terms of the 75% and the dollar amount that it translates to. Do you have that offhand?
2015's budget shows $844,000 in revenue and $3.4 million in operating expenses. This equates to a subsidization of $2.556 million.
So the taxpayers already currently subsidize the recreation center by $2.5 million. I think the challenge we have obviously is balancing how much we're raising taxes to increase services versus balancing it with a fee structure that's fair for everybody. Within this is a recreation access program, which allows anyone who's at a certain income demographic to be able to access the recreation center. I believe it's called the Recreation Access Program. And can you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the Recreation Access Program allows any family that finds themselves below the income threshold cutoff, or the low income cutoff that's set federally. And any eligible family member, regardless of their family size, would receive 50 free admissions to the entire complex throughout a calendar year, as well as any of the registered course fees would be reduced. And so that would mean a discount of 50% for every adult and 90% for every child, up to $300 per eligible individual.
So I think, and then the other thing that changed here is that you guys have taken all of the different, so the seniors and youth have been amalgamized into one rate, as well as, rather than paying separately from the pool, the skating, the gym, all of that is one fee now that they can use within a 3-hour time frame, so that if you go to use the pool, you can then, so that was not the case before, is that correct?
Correct. And so we amalgamated, or we're recommending that we amalgamate the senior and youth and post-secondary rates into one rate, the lowest of the three. And so what that would translate to is a 25% discount for every senior. As well as, like you say, Mayor Brain, that it would give every community member access to all facilities. So during a 3-hour period, they would have opportunity to experience everything the complex has to offer. We're also recommending a daily rate as well, so that there would be an ability for guests to have essentially an in and out ability, that prior to work or the school day, they could attend right through to the end of an evening.
Right. So the other, Mr. Golden brought up in the committee of the whole was about, if we raise rates, about users actually using the facility. And so you guys are implementing a new software that's going to be able to track how many people are using it year by year, and we can actually see a trend. But currently we don't have that mechanism. Is that
correct? So with our antiquated software we currently have in use, it's very difficult to track those type of trends. With the new software that we're implementing early in 2016, we expect that we'll be able to identify every demographic that walks through the door, as well as the time of day of the week, and we're able to adapt our program offerings based on those demographics and track how participation potentially increases with some of the streamlined nature. Also keeping in mind that with the proposed revised bylaw, we're looking at less than $1 increase for seniors and students by 2020 per admission, and just over $1 increase for adult admissions, and that's over the course of the 5 years. So meaning July 1, 2016 through to December 31, 2020.
So last year we raised rates as well, and the same argument was brought up then. Based on program attendance and all those things this year, would you say that people are using the Civic Center more?
Absolutely. All of the anecdotal response from the community is that the facility has not only been in better condition than it's ever been in, although it's aging 34 to 44 years respectively, it's been better attended than it has been in years.
Right. So this capital reserve fund then, so for example, we had to replace a sauna, we had to get new gym equipment. There's a bunch of capital improvements that have to be done to the building. We have the pools. I believe there's a retaining wall or a wall there that needs some work and things like that. So you're suggesting then a 5% away per year for capital investments back into the Civic Center? Is that what that's for?
Correct. So currently, as part of our asset management program, we haven't identified any specific. So the purpose of the 5% of all revenue would ensure that we are always continually socking away some dollars so that we have that ability to work on, like you say, Mayor Brain, we've got current leaking problems in the Earl Mile Aquatic Center. We've got a gymnasium floor in the Civic Center that in 44 years of existence has never been sanded down to wood. So there's many, many projects to do. And by stowing away that 5% of revenue, albeit not necessarily a significant dollar, it's a start for us to start to look ahead that those facilities won't last us forever. And so how can we be diligent stewards and ensure that we're able to maintain, repair, and prepare for the future?
Right. Great. Thank you.
Well, on this increase, would it be prudent to say that if we don't get it or you don't get it, that the increase in taxes will have to come just to maintain the services are there, never mind to increase the services?
Correct.
Because first of all, you're going to have there's definitely capital expenditures. They're going to have to come from the city alone. Even though I know you're diligently assuming or pursuing some grants right now for different things, but at the end of the day, if the users aren't paying a little more, then they're going to end up losing in the end because we'll have to either cut hours or cut programs.
Correct. So in order to be sustainable, that something needs to shift and needs to change. And as we approach, we received findings back from 8 surrounding communities, and again with a number like 27 to 42% lower than the average. Those are communities that are in the same situations we are. And obviously operating costs and our overhead costs are pieces that we're unable to control. And so we need to adapt, and we need to find a way to make that happen by recommending a user pay increase. It alleviates the need to push back on the community as a whole in the form of a tax increase.
And we've never had a capital asset fund in the rec center before.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Kinney.
Thank you, Mayor Brain. Thank you, Willa, for your report, and it's very well done. I want to compliment you on it. It explains everything very well. The one thing I want to ask, in the budget, are you planning on putting a little bit aside for a lift to go upstairs, so for the seniors and disabled people such as myself?
Yes, actually, we're in the specifications process actually currently. So we have already set aside the dollars for accessibility lifts, both on the 2 sets of stairs at the complex. So at the Earl Mile Aquatic Center as well as the Civic Center, both will have accessibility lifts in 2016. So that's already in motion.
Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Good, I can use it.
Other questions from Councillor Nish?
I'd just like to say that also, as Councillor Kinney reported or said about this report, it's very good. The one thing that I like about it is that it's showing basically the increases for the multiple years to 2020, which basically allows people to get an understanding of really the numbers that will be coming in. And if you look at it, like a youth, it's like 13 cents or something per year. And I feel that that's really needs to be put out to the people. If we don't do any increases over 5 years, it's going to be more if you add up these increases over the 5 years now that the way they'd be proposed, it's going to be a lot more after 5 years if we're not making that little bit each year in between. And it may be $2 instead of $1 over the 5 years. Unfortunately, we put too much on our taxpayers as it is, and a user pay system is coming more and more to more things. Unfortunately, this will affect myself too. I mean, I spend a lot of time at the Civic Center with my children.
Councillor Randall?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a good report, and we need some more extra revenue, but only concern mine is some break for the youth, because they are the one always have struggling for the money, and especially with our cannery shut down now, loss of jobs, and higher rental market. So people are struggling with the money right now. So I make motion we should make break for the youth.
You're making a motion?
Yes.
Okay, so break for the youth. Okay.
What was that motion? I didn't
making
quite
a
understand
motion
it.
to have a break for the youth in the. Does anybody want to? I'm just thinking about how to word that, what you want out of that. As well, is there anybody who seconds that motion? Okay, so I'm not hearing any seconders. So, Willa, can you maybe outline a little bit more what we're doing for youth in terms of prices and stuff? Because I understand Councillor Renhauer's concern that we are in that kind of in-between zone where a lot of families are being stressed, rental prices are going up, and we did have a major job loss in the community. So in terms of the youth rate and the recreation access program, can you maybe reiterate some of those pieces?
Sure.
Particularly the drop-in rate, I think, is another part of it.
Absolutely. So just to backtrack for a moment to what Councillor Niche was mentioning about the increase that we had in 2010 and how increases work across the recreation industry, it is quite common to experience a 3 to 5% increase in fees every year. And so the increase in 2010, 2015, we didn't touch any rates since 2010. So it was a 5-year period. We increased by 10%. The math obviously is right in line with how industry would work, and this recommendation also is within that framework. So just to touch on that piece regarding Councillor Randawa and like Mayor Brain, you're saying around the casual drop in rate. So we have actually in this recommendation, although we've increased the other rates, we've also retained the casual gym rate of that $1.10. And so what that looks like is that youth or children that participate, we've blocked off that after school time every day for casual gym. So that's young folks that want to come in and shoot around, or parents and children that want to pass a badminton birdie around, or whatever the case might be, that it is still retaining that casual drop-in, which many of the youth, that's typically where we see the biggest influx of youth. So we have actually carved that rate out. Many communities don't maintain that rate. They will lump them in with all rates together and say regardless of if you're there for an hour or 3 hours, it's the same rate. We're actually maintaining that casual drop-in rate. So that's one of the pieces of how we're trying to lessen the impact on our youth. As well, again, with the recreation access policy, with 50 visits per eligible participant, that's in and around 1 visit per week for every family member, as well as for the registered programs, being a 90% discount. So meaning that it's participants or children would be paying 10% of any registered fee, and of that 10%, they've got $300 per year. So obviously very significant savings, and that's for any registered program, from swimming lessons to any of our other dry land or aquatic type programs.
Right. So just one second there, Councillor Kenny.
When you look at this, the one thing that the Rec Commission concentrated on was the fact that youth at risk and any other people would still have access through programs to the facility, and I think that's been well taken care of. And the big problem is if we don't do these rate increases and the actual rec center doesn't start paying a little more towards its own sort of future, then it's going to go like the way of some of the other facilities where they're going to have to shut down a day here or a day there, or start cutting services or staff. So in the end, all the users lose. This way, right now, the way I see it, everyone's still winning, all aspects of the spectrum. And one question that an earlier spokesperson in the Committee of the Whole asked about is staff rates and RCMP and firefighter rates going up as well. And I had indicated at the time I thought so, but I just looking at my notes here, and I don't specifically see that being addressed. So are they going up the same amount, 5% a year?
The rates that originally set for those groups of people were not included in the bylaw rate. I'd feel very comfortable at adjusting them and having them match whatever we do with the community, so that the entire community as a whole accesses our facilities at the same rate. So there isn't a division. I'm happy to explore that. And also, as Councillor Cunningham mentioned about youth at risk, we currently have a Youth in Motion grant from the Healthy Communities Integration Committee with Northern Health. And so we're offering free youth programming monthly. And so that's another opportunity for youth to come in and participate in a variety of activities. They're also fed and watered when they're there. So there is a standing monthly event for youth in our community as well.
So,
if I could make a recommendation or add it to the resolution that the rate increases include all users, so that there's no specific or special groups being left out of it.
I'd second that motion.
Okay.
So the recommendation would change to include that, or actually, a discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor on that amendment? Okay. Okay. Motion's carried. One last thing I was just going to say here before we move the full recommendation is that that at the end of the day, you'll never turn away a child from the Civic Center. Is that correct?
Correct. Under no circumstance would we ever turn a community member away.
Okay. Okay, so the recommendation with the amendment put forward by Councillor Cunningham is to give first, second, third reading to the Recreation Fees Charges Bylaw number 3383/2015 and establish a Recreation Capital Reserve Fund.
I second it.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Kenny, second by Councillor Cunningham. Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's some benefit, like programs for everybody to get free, but most of the time when people go there, they see the rates, the books you send homes every day, and they check on the internet, and they don't know. Mostly people don't even know those programs are there. So that's why my suggestion is we should give break to kids, to youth, so they can attend over there instead of running around outside and smashing cars or other thing. I rather like to see those people over there.
Well, I guess, I'm not sure what else to say to that. I think we've done everything we possibly can to address that, but it's an absolute concern. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. I think we've done everything in our power. The rates, I believe, are quite reasonable for youth. So I'm not sure how else to address that, but I just want you to know that I'm definitely hearing you on that. Councillor Morrow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I would add to that, Councillor Rendau, is that we we are the ones with the control of the pricing mechanism, but it's Willa's job really to market that service, and that's what we've entrusted her to do. And so I'm going to trust that she's going to continue to market that program, because we know how generous of a subsidy it is, and it does address that concern in particular. The one thing I want to add just before we vote is the main concern I've heard from people about rate increases, in particular to the recreation facility, is I haven't heard someone say that they're not willing to pay a higher rate if they're assured that the quality of the facility is going to be maintained and improved, because people don't want to pay increased rates for the quality of the facility to continue to deteriorate. So that's why I'm strongly in favor of establishing this recreation capital reserve fund. It's something that's long overdue, and I think that goes a long way to assuring those people that new revenue from those user fees, instead of being increasingly subsidized by general taxpayers, will go directly into capital improvements, which we all know are very needed on an aging facility.
Great. Councillor Nish?
I was just going to say more about trying to push the programs and maybe advertise them a bit more. And where are these programs available? Is it right at the rec center they can apply for this, or do they have to go online, or most of these programs? How is it set up?
So currently, in person or over the telephone is typically how registration works. With the new recreation software, we'll also have the ability for online registration. So we'll always welcome folks into our facilities to register. There will also be an opportunity when we have online registration that folks are able to register at home. And with the leisure guide that Councillor Randawa had mentioned, it's issued quarterly. It's also out earlier than it's ever been in history. So we've got that ability to get ahead of the curve with families trying to make plans for their children and their families to know how they're spending their time. So mid-November, we've already circulated for the January to March period. And so that way, again, another opportunity for families to be well aware in advance what's coming up, so that we can start to help increase program registration as well.
Also, just to add to that, is that our communication manager, Veronica Stewart, has created an infographic for the community that will get on social media, and then we'll be able to reach thousands of community members to be able to promote these programs, because that is the next step here, is really being able to highlight what is available. And also, just clarify, so these rates, we're not passing the final adoption tonight, but these rates would be applicable starting July 1st now? That's the way you're...
Correct. So the recommendation is that July 1, 2016. So we've got months of time to inform user groups and ensure they're aware of those changes. In addition, with proposing a 5-year set of fees and charges, every user group, every rental, everything from a birthday party to a public skate, and every minor sport organization would have the opportunity to know and educate their users or their members what they can expect to pay. So if you're one of the local minor sport organizations, you know for the coming 5 years what your revenue for registration fees might look like, based on, you'll understand years in advance what the costs will be.
Great. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 12A, Housing Committee. Just a quick update here. We've, through the Prince Rupert Aboriginal Community Services Society, they were working on a provincial pilot project. There has now been a new consultant hired to continue that process. So there'll be an affordable housing project process underway between us, the city, the Prince Rupert Aboriginal Community Services Society, Hecate Strait, as well as the North Coast Transition Society, and that process will lead probably into March. And then hopefully there will be a project of such a nature of what we all come up with here together. And I'm hoping that we can get something off the ground here in 2016. So it's looking very positive. So that's underway. And that's all I have for the Housing Committee. The last piece is a report from Council. And I believe Councillor Moreau, you have a report from the conference you just at.
I do, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to report back really quickly. as you guys will recall, we approved the budget for the mayor to attend the Cities Fit for Children Summit, which I filled in for earlier this month. It was attended by myself, the city planner, as well as Kate Toy from Success by Six. And what I just wanted to report back on was something that was highlighted was a lot of cities, including the city of Prince Rupert in 2009, signed what was called Child-Friendly Proclamation, which was essentially just a resolution from council saying you would take children's rights and try to integrate their perspective in policy and in decision making and things like that. There was a lot of workshops specifically around child-friendly policies that cities can undertake, and there was different things like walking school buses and things of that nature, but also as well as in physical design, things like jut-out sidewalks to reduce the length of crosswalks and improve sight lines for pedestrians. But really the theme of the event was how to make municipalities in general accessible for children, and so that was more the overarching theme. And I know with our budget constraints, we've got to be very careful not to, pick and choose which particular projects we're going to, cater to all. Really, child-friendly policy is the same, really, as senior-friendly policy. It's how can we make all of our decision-making and our planning oriented towards accessibility. But there is one initiative that's taking hold across Canada that I think we could really take a look at, and that's the Children's Bill of Rights being adopted at the municipal level. That basically takes the proclamation, which is a resolution, taking it that one step farther, basically to enshrine for ourselves, based on what the United Nations has done about what are children's rights. It's the same as our rights, but recognizing that the child has the same rights as us when it comes to any policy decision we make. And I've brought back a bunch of materials based on what the city of Vernon had done. It's a step that doesn't cost us anything. It makes a great statement about and really focuses us on just protecting the rights of children who otherwise might not get the opportunity to speak for themselves. So that's something I'm happy to provide the materials for, and something I think we can easily pursue and without adversely affecting the budget, which is great.
Thank you for the report. Councilor Kinney?
I have one here that I think it's a citizen in town here that's being recognized, and it's a worldwide recognition, and it also puts in a nice little blurb for the town. It's the Lonnie Wishart's a photographer in our town, and she's well known outside of the town, and the Scotiabank Photography book series, which has started in 1994, is now in its third decade, recognizes careers of serious photographers from all around the world, and she was picked this year to be the photographer out of everyone else. Wow. And the books are for sale. They don't. The Wishart family donated the books to the museum for fundraising, but the last little blurb in it, I think, is quite significant. We hope living at the edge, Canada's northwest coast, by Lonnie Wishart takes you closer to the natural beauty and culture of North America's northwesternmost port, an important city in Canada's economic future. And this is coming from Scotia Waterhouse, so it's a significant acclaim that should be recognized.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Kinney?
Thank you, Mayor Brain. I would just like to congratulate all the newly elected council and mayor of Lac Willam's, and we're very happy and looking forward to working with you in the new term. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I just have a quick report here. First, we know that the community has just suffered a major blow to one of our industries. The canning operation at Canfisco is going to be closing down. We're still working with the company to get a sense of how many jobs lost. They're still up in the air. There's a number of 500 jobs is being thrown out. The company says it's 350. Either way, it's still hundreds of jobs. So we're going to be working closely with both those affected and the company to help resolve this as best as we can. But in the meantime, the province is sending up a task force in a time such as this when a community faces a major hit. They sent up a task force, and we invited them to come. And I believe that's through the Hecate Strait Employment Development Services Society down on First Ave. They, I believe, starting tomorrow, they will be up here helping any people that have been affected with a job loss in terms of training, job searches, a whole variety of programs will be available for those who have been affected. So those, if anyone here is listening that have been affected by that, then that's Hecate Strait's the place to go through Work BC, and you'll be able to get assistance through them. Second thing I want to say is I just wanted to wish Della Curry a happy 100th birthday. Attended her birthday on Sunday at the Presbyterian Church, and it was quite an event. And yeah, she was actually good friends with my grandmother, and I used to have tea at her house when I was a child. So just wanted to wish her a happy birthday in the council chambers. Lastly, just wanted to announce that the City of Prince Rupert is releasing a major community vision to the community this week. We partnered with the Northern View to get the information correct and presented in a way to the community, and so that's going to be out this week in the Northern View in the paper. We will also release a social media and media release to the public. It's a 5-part vision, and it's all based on some of the strategic planning that Council has done earlier this year, as well as a lot of the surveying that we've done to the community, both our present surveying and past surveying, and we've kind of organized it in a way to present what we believe the next 50 to 100 years actually looks like in Prince Rupert. So you can stay tuned to seeing that released just this Wednesday. And we're looking forward to engaging the public around the vision. So it's going to set up a framework, but the public will have plenty of opportunity to be engaged and consulted and all those types of things. But we're very excited about that. So I just wanted to let people know that that's coming out. And I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Councillor Cunningham.